Hello and welcome back to our live streaming coverage of RSAC Conference 2025. I'm Jameson Cush with Informa Tech Target and eyeontech. And if you missed it earlier, we chatted AI sustainability, quantum preparedness, and security operations. Please check those out. But now we're going to shift gears, and these are some of my favorite conversations from the show. It's really with the experts and the journalists from Informa Tech Target that are actually covering the show, so we can really find out what's happening. I'm going to introduce Becky Bracken. She's a senior editor with Dark Reading, also a veteran journalist and cybersecurity expert. Becky, welcome, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jameson. This is great, appreciate it.
Well, I'm going to just kick it off to you because you're actually going to be on the show floor covering it, so what can we expect from RSAC Conference 2025?
I think we are at a really interesting time in cybersecurity. There are a lot of really transformational things happening on a lot of different fronts at the same time. And there's a lack of predictability that I think the entire industry is really having to grapple with. You first have the federal government. There's been a huge pivot from really using CISA to lead, to put out secure by design initiatives, to really lead on funding a lot of basic programs. That is not going to be a thing anymore under this administration. So what that means to businesses kind of remains to be seen. How many of those resources can be made up? The CVE program is an excellent example. A couple weeks ago, CISA announced that they are no longer going to be funding MITRE's overseeing of the CVE program. The CVE program is critical because everybody, Jen Easterly called it the Dewey Decimal System for vulnerabilities. It's how everybody tracks. It's how everybody knows what they're looking at. So the CISA at the last minute did decide that they're going to continue to fund it, in the short term. So what does that mean? That means that ultimately vendors who rely on this, the numbers out of MITRE were a $37 billion cybersecurity vendor market that relies on these CVEs to do basic business. So their argument is, and this is an argument across the administration broadly, why doesn't the private sector pick that up? Well, there's a reason. The reason is because once vendors are opening up their pockets, they can influence how these CVEs, they're going to be in the guts of it. There isn't going to be a brand neutral arbiter in the middle. So I think that is something that everybody is going to have to grapple with. The vacuum that is going to be left by the federal government's withdrawal. So I think that's one major thing, and that's what I'm really watching. I hear it's Kristi Noem tomorrow, so I want to hear what she says. I'm listening for, is her language offensive? Is her language more defensive, which would be more aligned with like a Jen Easterly Biden administration? So we're really reading tea leaves at this point to sort of figure out where the federal government is going to be on this. And so I think enterprises are kind of scratching their heads there. The second thing, of course, is AI. AI is everywhere, and it is changing everything, both on the attacker side as well as the defender side. So again, this is another major upheaval happening kind of at the same time as the federal. And then the third, of course, is quantum. This is another huge unknown. We don't know when it's going to happen, but teams need to start preparing their cryptography. NIST has come out with the post-quantum standards. It's time to start getting our house in order. So not only are these three sort of issues major upheaval, there's no real way to know how it's going to land. There's no predictability in it at this point. So that's what I'm here to try to figure out. What can, my audience at Dark Reading is primarily enterprises, enterprise security teams. So they're going to have to make decisions on budget. They're going to have to make decisions on all of these things. And, it's at this point, there's not a lot of data necessarily to use to make those decisions, which we know cybersecurity people love data.
So going back to the CISA issues, when you're on the show floor and you're speaking to the vendors and all that, what's their reaction to this? Are they ready to fill that gap, should they? Or did they see it as an opportunity, or do they really want the backstop of the government to help them out?
Well, I think that depends very much on where you are in the cybersecurity poverty line. If you are a big Fortune 500 with tons of money to blow. The CISA stuff coming in is cute and helpful, but you can afford to go to a big service that's going to give you everything you need. The big companies are interested. I think they understand they're going to have to pony up. But again, my question is, what will the cost be? What influence are they going to want? They want something for that money. And that's for the enterprise, So I think there is an appetite to support it, but I think, again, a lot of people just are kind of waiting in a wait and see mode. Where is the tide turning? With CISA and the CVE funding, and that is such a good example because it's so foundational to everything and it impacts everybody at this show. They've got another, I think it's 12 or 18 months of funding. That's not a long time, and at the same time, the EU is coming up with a competing standard. Other entities are coming up with competing standards. So now we're just going to have, so it's a very precarious time, I think, for what cybersecurity business used to look like. It's going to look vastly different.
And there's also the unpredictability in 4 years if there's a new administration and it swings back the other way. How do we prepare for this?
And this isn't in just cybersecurity. As the federal government goes in the past, business trails in its wake. We are under a fundamental reinvention of this, for good, bad, or otherwise. And I don't think there's a real consensus yet. I'm not hearing everybody go, this is terrible. Under the previous administration, they were hauling up CISOs in courts. The SolarWinds CISO, Tom Brown, the Uber CISO. I mean, the amount of agita that was created by these intense regulatory efforts was real, and it was also unpredictable, but now we've gone from this conversation of how am I going to stay on the right side of the SEC to that's no longer an issue now, how are we going to do this? And so that's especially for these big companies, it's a pretty breakneck speed to just pivot.
Yep. So you mentioned AI, and we've gone about 5 minutes without talking about AI.
I know, we got to go back.
Well, I want to bring up this quote because we spoke with another one of our colleagues, Alex Kalafi, last year. And Alex had it was a typical journalistic quote. I asked him the three things that he, from the show that he took away. And he said it was companies hyping AI, companies marketing AI, and companies selling AI.
Yes.
I'm assuming we're seeing more of that.
Well, I think, as in a lot of things, I think we saw this with zero trust. It evolves into, zero trust has actually kind of evolved into identity and access management. That's really kind of how that's evolved. AI, I think there are real use cases. There are real use cases for it. And even the most technical of folks will say that. The problem is we're really in a testing phase. And so a lot of things that are being sold as AI are not necessarily, it's large language models, and we can go into that whole thing, but I think it is still a buzzword. It is still, when you hear AI, AI, but I mean, let me give you this example. On the attacker side, they are embracing AI. Let me give you an example. There is Daracula, I don't know, I've only typed it out, but it is a platform used by attackers to launch cyber attacks. It's like an Amazon platform, and you're an attacker, you go on, you buy your subscription, and they give you you don't need to know coding, they just added an AI component to it. So now, this platform can translate into any language, brand into any brand. They can, the attackers are generating the use cases. So as much as maybe in our cyber teams right now, you can't drill down on this is a make or break thing, they need to be deploying it as quickly to stay competitive. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and when I'm talking to journalists here, it's always, they're the ones who scare me the most. When you hear things about the Amazon for attackers, or Volt Typhoon, or any of that. So one buzzword I haven't heard you say, and I think I've only started hearing it in the past few months, is agentic AI.
Yes.
Is that something, is there a lot of that out there?
Yeah, and I think that is it's starting to rear its ugly head, and I think that it is, again, a more drilled down use case, from a lot of the other models. The problem that everybody is having to deal with is a big public model isn't necessarily going to work for this application. We're going to need to develop clean, controlled models that are trained on information we can trust. And so right now, that's really where right now AI can't code securely, last I checked. Maybe that's changed in the past few weeks, but it's pretty close. You know what I mean? So the more that we're sort of just tinkering with these things, and again, the attackers are doing the same thing. So, all of these things are going to sort themselves out. But again, it's just yet another question mark, among these teams. Do we go out and spend $1 bazillion on AI tooling? I don't, it's a tricky one.
And there are also, you mentioned quantum preparedness.
Yes.
So are they spending billions of dollars on something that is 10, 15, or maybe 5, or whatever, years away?
Yeah, and again, AI and quantum both, we don't know the timeline. Quantum especially, it could happen tomorrow, it could happen 4 years from now, but when it happens, we're in a totally different world, and none of your websites that have HTTPS on them are safe anymore. None of them. It's almost hard to wrap your head around. I had a really smart guy one time, and actually it was at RSA last year, and he was explaining to me about cryptography, and he goes, imagine asking yourself, how many nails are in this building? We're sitting in a huge, I'm like, I don't know, and he goes, that's the job of these guys, to try to ferret out all of these pieces of cryptography that need to be updated to a post-quantum standard. So, but again, if you're in an enterprise team, do you prioritize that over Volt Typhoon that's trying to come in through your back door? I don't know. I'm glad that's not my problem to solve, but it's a big one.
And so the question I'm asking everybody as we start to wrap up, what are you looking forward to seeing on the show? What do you, we already talked about what you expect to see, but what are you looking forward to? What would blow you away if you saw it on the show floor?
I'm really looking forward to the government keynote tomorrow. My understanding is it's going to be Christy Nome. So again, I'm very interested to see what her presentation is going to say and what she's going to carve out as a role. And again, I'm interested in a vibe check. I'm interested with all of these question marks, like how are the biggest and baddest in the industry going to stand in the breach? And to me, that's the question I want to answer. And so we'll see. Are they all going to open up their checkbooks and privatize this? Are they all going to, I don't know. But there's a lot of decisions that need to be made this year, and I think they're happening here.
I think you're coming back, too, to chat with us later this week.
Yes, I will report back.
You can report back. Excellent.
Yes.
Well, I look forward to having you here, and I appreciate you taking the time today.
Absolutely my pleasure.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you so much for joining us. For Gen English, I am Jameson Cush. Thank you for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe.